Get up to 2 months of free podcasting service with Libsyn. Check out the show notes for your promo code to get started podcasting today.
I'm happy. I look forward to walking in a room and whatever's happening, I've learned not to allow that to take away from my own joy and peace and space. So I want to bring in peace and joy. I don't want to take joy and peace away from other people.
Hey, folks. I'm Angela Taylor, your host for Unlocking the Club, and thanks for grabbing your keys, your wallet, and inviting your friends to join me here at the club. Unlocking the Club is a space where my guests and I continue to discuss, what we're up to in our lives, both personally and professionally. And more importantly, we journey to have these candid conversations, not just about what we're doing in our life, but specifically about who we've had to be along our way and throughout our journeys. The core of what we do here at Unlocking the Club is to unlock the truths in a way that is both cathartic and relaxing and rejuvenating and impactful to not just those of us participating in the conversations, but certainly those of you that are watching on YouTube or listening in on the podcast platform of your choice. My hope is that my guests, that you all get a chance to get to know a little bit through our conversations, but that the guests, you are amazing listeners, and I each are able to learn a little bit about ourselves through the stories that we share in these conversations. Listening to that inner voice and changing directions is such an important part of our journeys. And being able to see ourselves in others has been something that has been incredibly invaluable to me. So I look forward to being in conversation today and hope that you get as much out of the conversation as we intend you to do. Today, we're actually going to delve into women's sports. It's a really amazing time in the evolution of women's sports. We saw about a month ago what happened in the NCAA women's basketball tournament. It was incredible. 24 million viewers at the top of the viewing audience watched the championship game between South Carolina and the University of Iowa. There's a lot happening in women's sports, but there's a lot that happens behind the scenes. And I am so excited today to be joined by our special guest, Jacqie McWilliams. So we'll learn a little bit more about what it is like to lead in sports and across the sports landscape. So welcome to Unlocking the Club. I'm really happy to unlock this topic with today's special guest, Jacqie McWilliams.
Welcome to the Unlocking the Club podcast, where we host honest and direct conversations about journeys of access, personal truth, and reclaiming space. We share our truth so that you can find the key to own your truth, honor your journey, and reclaim your space. Grab your keys, your wallet, your phone, and invite your friends to meet you at the club. Here's your host, Angela Taylor.
Jacqie McWilliams Parker has dedicated 31 years to intercollegiate athletics. For almost 10 years in championships at the NCAA corporate office, she's in her 12th season in her dream job as the Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association Commissioner, also known as the CIAA Commissioner. Jacqie received her undergraduate degree at Hampton University and is a two-time inductee of the Hampton University Hall of Fame, once as a two-sport athlete and recently as a member of the 1988 Division II NCAA Women's Basketball National Team. McWilliams Parker is a member of the Virginia Union University Hall of Fame for her commitment to women's sports as a former coach and administrator, and continues to contribute to the women's program, the place that gave her her start in the industry. McWilliams is also a member of Temple University's Gallery of Success as an alumnus, and where she has established a postgraduate scholarship for HBCU students interested in receiving their postgraduate degree in sports management and hospitality. McWilliams Parker was a former member and president of the Board of Women Leaders in Sports, and she currently serves the chair for the HBCU Board Power Commissioners. Thanks for tuning in today as we unlock the club with our special guest, Jacqie McWilliams. Jacqie McWilliams, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. It's such an honor to be here with you, Angela. So thank you. It's always weird in kind of like that moment when people are talking about you. And you're like, oh my God, that's me.
Absolutely. How does it feel when you hear all of that and what you have accomplished in your journey?
Oh, it's inspiring. It's part of knowing that I've done some work, and I'm hoping that every moment that and place that I work that I've left a good footprint, and, I think I have. So, it's me, and it's kinda hard, it's humbling. Actually, it's quite humbling, so
Yeah, just observed you as you were listening to that and just even to acknowledge and notice, like, how it lands with you. I think so often as busy professionals, we don't take the time to pause,
yeah,
reflect, and recognize the journey that we've been on,
wow,
and something that is incredibly important. I think we're moving on to the next thing and
yeah.
don't give ourselves a chance to celebrate. Have you found the time, and how have you done so over the course of your journey to celebrate the impact that you're having and the journey that you've been part of?
I think when I do these podcasts or when I'm speaking and people do my introductions, I was just in Indianapolis a couple months ago doing the Stewart Speaker Series, and I had a chance to be with Jackie Joyner Kersee on stage. And it's those moments when people are reading your bios or they're asking you questions, and you're like, man, or you're listening to the other speaker and you realize and recognize those are the moments that you kinda take it in. So, I think in this moment, I'm taking in like, "Girl, you got this. You've been doing some work." And, but the work is never done. You don't get caught up in what the all the titles and all that says. I think I get caught up with, I hope that I'm making a difference per my mission and per the gifts that God has given me. So, probably not as often as I should, but when I have these moments, I think I take it all in, Angela.
Well, I love that perspective, and it probably allows you to continue to have the impact that you're not making it about, like, the thing, but that you are literally, like, pursuing the calling that you have
Mhm.
and leveraging the gifts that you've been granted, and I think that that's really important. It's remarkable. We met about a little less than a year ago at the conference, the Women Leaders in Sports Conference in New Orleans, which was an incredible event, my first time at the event, and had the great fortune of sitting next to you at dinner and then spending some time with you, and what I can recognize, Maya Angelou says this all the time, "It's not about what someone says, but it's how they make you feel."
Yeah.
And when you walk in the room, I saw how you make people feel.
Mm,
That there were so many women in that room of all different colors, races, ethnicities, stages in their career,
wow.
who, when you walked in the room, when you were in conversation with them, they had this sense of joy
Mm,
and this sense of being seen and valued when they were in your company. Do you recognize that, and why is something like that so important?
wow. Wow, are you trying to make me cry today? Is this what we doing? I
Hey, Oprah, hey, go ahead and cry, get the tissue out, what
Come on, Angela Oprah Taylor. I every day I wake up and I just ask God to just let me be a blessing, let me do work, that's really not about me, in the moments that I don't feel like putting my feet on the ground. Show me what my purpose is today because somebody may be going through the same, and I want to be that person that gives joy and light, because that's what I want to feel when I'm in the presence of other people. And even if they don't do that, I know that God has given me the gift. When I was a little girl, my mom used to say at daycare, they called me Smiley. And, I see this little picture of me when I was a baby, and all you see is my gums. And people still say, all we can see is your gums, and the 9,000 teeth you have. And it's something about, my mom was the same. And she was such a kind woman, a kind person. And, we were a military family. We had to learn how to navigate and meet new people and smile when you didn't want to, and, be at ease when you needed to and be alert, so I think I was raised and taught, my mom would say, probably like most Black mamas would say, "You can't speak, you come down here and open your mouth. It don't cost a thing to speak and say hello." So I think for me, Angela, I think it's important that people feel like they are heard, they are seen, because I know what that feels not to be heard and not to be seen. So in my own presence, I wanna be present to people, and it's taken a long time to find my own joy, so I'm happy. I look forward to walking in a room, and whatever's happening, I've learned not to allow that to take away from my own joy and peace and space. So I want to bring in peace and joy. I don't want to take joy and peace away from other people. And so I think wherever I go, even at home, even with the challenges, we need to be able to communicate and talk when those moments feel like I don't look like it, and why. Because I want my family to feel good as well. And it's work every single day, but it's not hard when I know the presence of who's in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to stay here a little bit, Jacqie, if we can. Is you talked about certainly the joy and the impact and the smiley and disarming others, right? And kind of bringing that joy and effervescence into the room. But you also mentioned the sense of where you felt like you weren't being seen. When was that? And how did you consume that?
You know what? Probably when I was even a little girl. I mean, I think, my mom, again, she's deceased. She died in 2007. I think she saw me, she heard me, she encouraged me. I mean, our scripture, even, to this day, I hear, you can do all things through Christ that strengthens you. She was a force to let me see that being dark, my hair wasn't the same as all the people we were around, that I was still pretty, but I never felt that way. It just seemed like everyone around me, looked better, had more, So the Barbies, all of those things that we see when we were growing up that are so different now. But for me, it wasn't. It was like competing with myself with things that didn't look like me, but it looked better. I didn't get to see myself in leadership roles. I didn't get to see myself, on TV. I did on Soul Train, those kind of things, but to actually see, women leading and being a force, and not secretaries and not just teachers and not just, and so it was I think just growing up and trying to find my the confidence. So sports for me, like that was the moment when I knew, like, look, I may not think I'm cute, but I can ball. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like, you can't
Yeah.
take that away. Like, you can't run faster than me. You can't roller skate better than me. You can't double dutch better than me. You can't play marbles or jacks better than me. Like, I knew how talented I was with my hands, how talented I was as an athlete, but I also knew that I had a talented heart.
Mm.
But physically and how I looked as a Black girl, I just never could resonate that that was okay. Maybe because of the things that were happening, maybe because of where we lived and it looked better. But, my parents sent me to Mississippi every summer. So that's when I was like, okay, Black people, here we
My
go.
people, hear my people. Yep.
Yeah, and it was a place where my family gave me comfort, it gave me a place of, you can do this, little girl. Like, you got, like, I am the one who they expected to fly. And until this day, I'm 55 years old and they still act like, did she just have a drink? The answer would be no around my family. Like, it was just a protection that I knew that I had. I just didn't know what all that meant until I got older and did work, Angela. I mean, I was 10 and almost tried to take my life, and it took me a long time to understand why I did that. And it's sad every now and then when I think about it. I'm like, I was 10. Like, when my daughter was 10, I saw myself protecting her very differently and asking questions, and part of it was I just didn't felt like I was seen, by my dad. He worked hard. That's what he knew, but the attention wasn't there the same. The boys, they just boys. They wouldn't let you play, so I had to fight to play on the playground, and I played, but I had to fight. It just felt like, all my life I had to fight, and, learning, through sports and being courageous and being the captain and being a leader and finding confidence and all those things that we know about what sports does. That's why this time is so important what we're seeing in women's sports, right? It used to be a boom when soccer, was so important to see them women advocating and fighting, and how many girls gravitated to soccer and how they gravitated to tennis with Serena, and now basketball is like fire. These moments are important for the visibility of little girls like me that maybe didn't get to see it. Jackie Joyner and I were talking about it was the Olympics. That's where we saw women running fast, and I saw the Flo Hyman playing volleyball. Like, I literally cried when she passed away. I'm like, she's the only woman in volleyball that I knew that was like super chick, that could hit the ball, and aspired to be her. And when she passed, I felt like, well, man, like who's the next?
Yeah.
So I think it's that. I think it's, starting out very young, knowing that I did have family that tried to tell me, but when you get out in those streets, people try to tell you different. And I wasn't grounded enough to know that my blackness was still beautiful, my hair was still fine, but I used my talent of everything else that I could bowl, play, everything. That was the commonality I did have with everybody. And sometimes I was a lot better. Most of the time I was a lot
Yeah.
better in those spaces.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And when you say that at the age of 10, you thought about taking your life, that really resonated with me because I imagine there are a lot of people who we're going to minimize the impact of feeling like you're invisible. We're gonna minimize that,
Yeah.
for young children, but it does have a real impact on folks, and I think we have a very similar lived experience in the military, so most often you're probably not in spaces with a lot of people who look like you,
Mm-mm.
and you do have that sense of people not seeing you or people saying, "I'm colorblind." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "I don't want you to be colorblind. I want you to see me in my fullness and my glory as a beautiful Black girl."
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And I think it's a compliment to say that they're colorblind,
Yeah.
whether it is your classmates or your peers or the teachers or the boys, like, not seeing you or thinking of you
Yeah.
as a human being and the possibility of the relationships, it is a profound impact on the evolution of a young person.
It is. It is.
And
It's impactful. It really is. I mean, I remember being in the airport in Germany, and, you know, the Germans and white people, they maybe not have seen a Black girl before, and they touched my hair. I mean, they literally came and touched my hair, and I don't even remember how my mom reacted or responded, but my mom was real kind, and, some Black mamas probably would've slapped somebody's hand. I don't remember her doing that, but it was their curiosity, and but sometimes curiosity is real painful, and people say things that are extremely painful that they don't realize the impact that it has, being called the N-word early on, by young people. Like, where did that come from? I don't even know, and learning and trying to manage what those optics are for my own life and what that looks like for me raising my own daughter and being a mentor or being around people who don't look like me that have said some really painful things, but how do I show up in that?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, there's 2 things that you shared that have led you to where you are, like the smiley comment. Like, I 100% believe that subconsciously, and your mother probably the generations, we know it's in our
Yeah.
DNA,
Yeah,
like our mothers and their mothers and their mothers' mothers, right?
definitely.
All have had this sense of, we have to disarm people so that we can be in conversation or just be in a shared space
Yeah.
with them, and people say the same they call me sunshine. Right? And I think that it was an instinct, it was a reflex to
Yeah.
smile, to disarm,
Yeah.
and it can be exhausting.
It is very exhausting, very exhausting. I remember, again, part of the storytelling is my truth. And so when I was 25, again, it was that thought and attempt to take my life. And I was so tired of smiling, but on the inside, I was crying. And I didn't know how to manage that because I wasn't really taught or allowed to cry or to shed emotion without it feeling like I was complaining, like, "Get it together." Like, "What you crying for?" Like, and so I internalized for so long pain and maybe even some trauma that I just learned about that I've just actually have spoken about in the last 5 years, what I didn't really want to say, but had to share it to relieve myself from, the pain. Because I do wanna smile and when you see it, I want you to see that it's really me and I'm not just hiding, right? I'm not hiding behind the smile. So what you get now is what you see. Like I thank God that he's allowed me to just enjoy the peace and the joy that I have, and that my smile is not internalizing, that I speak my peace. And, I put my guards up where they not guards, but I know what my boundaries are to protect that with family and friends. And those are hard too. You got to work at that. And working in leadership roles and being a commissioner, whoo, you got to really work at it because everyone thinks they have the answer. They think they have the reach and the access, and not everyone's for your good. And even growing up, not everyone was for my good, not even family. And and that's hard when you're a person that's a heart person and a people person.
Yeah. Well, you said something about boundaries, incredibly important. Like a lot of times, like many of us, men, women, we all feel this sense of overwhelm.
Mhm.
And oftentimes it shows up because we have not done a good job of setting boundaries and expectations and prioritizing whatever it is that we need so that we can be in that space of self-care.
Yeah.
And so for people, I think for those of us in historically excluded or marginalized identities, really difficult to set those boundaries because to your statement about your mother, like you're not quite sure what she did when the Germans wanted to touch your hair. Like what boundary do you set? Because you don't want to be seen as that angry black woman.
Yes.
Right, but you also wanna protect your child and say that this she is a human being.
Yes. Yes.
And so how do you set those boundaries by trying to connect with people, but also honoring and who you are and who you need to be as a human being? It's really difficult. So I think one of those conversations we all need to have with ourselves are what are the boundaries? And they change
They change.
consistently, and we need to reflect on that. But Jackie, I have to ask you, from that 10-year-old girl who thought about committing suicide to the 25-year-old young professional who thought about it as well. What did it take for you to go from those 2 stages in your evolution, in your journey to where you are now and you have this clarity?
I think it was truly seeking help. I remember vividly that night I was in my bathroom and I had a handful of pills, Angela, like, and they were either gonna take me out where out, or they were gonna take me out where I'd be out. And I knew that. I remember the whisper of God in my ear saying, "I'm not done with you." Clearly. And I remember just weeping. And then I recognized that I had insurance that I could use at 25 to get help. It
Mm,
was something about that moment and the whisper that you're not alone in this. And I remember Julia Frischtick was my first therapist, and I was running to her like twice a week. I was lived in Richmond. I was working at Virginia Union University. That was my first job. I was coaching. I was a head volleyball coach, assistant basketball coach. I was a compliance coordinator, a senior women administrator. My first job, living on my own, and it was overwhelming in a relationship that probably wasn't healthy, trying to reconcile childhood, things that happened and just couldn't understand, not feeling like I was being seen or heard, or and just a crazy moment, but one that I always say, like he whispered, like, "Girl, I'm not done with you." And when I got counseling, that was probably the best thing. I really started to heal. I started to write letters to myself. I started to do some homework with my parents. My mom flew, like she didn't know what was going on, but she stayed with me for almost 2 weeks. And that was life-changing for me, for her to just know as a mom that she needed to be there. She didn't know what was going on, but when she got there, we got to spend a lot of good time, and I got to share some of, I was angry with her. I think sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves. We love the people we love, but sometimes the people we love, we feel like they've hurt us. And it's not that she did anything to me. I just felt like she could have did something to help you know,
mm,
to protect us from situations. And I realized growing up, our parents and people that we love sometimes do the best that they know how. And she did the best that she could, and she loved me hard. But man, she just taught me how just to be a good person, how to love hard, how to forgive. Like, that's hard to forgive, not to be resentful, to be a woman of God, to lean on my strengths. I was a young professional and she was so proud. My dad was proud too. He doesn't know how to show it, but just to lean in, what the gifts that you've gotten and never forget that. I've just found some letters from her just encouraging me and my grandmother sending me prayers. I mean, those all really do matter. So at 25, that whisper, but the prayers around you, if you're a person of faith, and understanding that my purpose was much bigger than me in that moment. That was the reminder, like, this is not about you, and you gotta get it together. And when you get it together, I'm gonna use you. And when I got it together, he has not been he's been faithful in everything, every move. I've moved, geez, I moved since I graduated from Hampton, 10 times. I've moved 6 states, 8 cities,
Wow.
right? And all have been advancing who I am as a professional, as a woman of God, as a personally, like, there's no mistake, no matter how challenging some of those places have been, of why I was there. And they have created this woman I am today to be bold, to be confident, to advocate. I mean, I've had to advocate every single place I have been. And I'm like, really, I got to fight again? Like, people are really gonna make comments about my hair or my color, like professionals? Like, this is what we're doing? Men are still gonna come at you and act like this is not harassment? Like, come on now. Like, we
Yeah.
still doing this. And, I think as a woman, as a leader, as a human being, I'm not gonna allow anybody to compromise my space. So that's why the boundaries are important. I had a conversation with a good friend the other day and I just said, people are going to they're going to come to you because they see that you're lacking confidence and self esteem. So they're coming at you because they see that. So it's this bullying spirit that people will bring towards you if you're not conscious and self-aware about who you are and about what people are bringing, cuz truly what you pour out is a lot of what people will bring to you if you're not careful. So I'm gonna pour out a lot of love, but I'm also gonna give you some, not today, Satan. You don't get to you won't get to come up in here and tear up all this beautiful work that's been taking place for 55 years. And it ain't been easy, but you don't get to destroy that. And that's finding your voice. And I think it's really hard for Black women to find our voice. When we have voice, it is said that we are X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Right? We are too loud, we're too boisterous, we're angry. No, I'm not angry. No, I'm not angry. I'm angry because I'm not gonna allow you to step in my space. That's not angry. That's just letting you know it's not okay. It's not acceptable. And I think we have to tell ourselves that we're not going in a space of anger, but we're going in a space to advocate for ourselves and for other people. But how we do it and how our tone and we do have to work on that because people do see us differently in that space, Angela.
Yes. And it's really important. What is the outcome? Do we want to be right or do we want them to receive the message?
Absolutely.
Think about that, and sometimes that'll help you with the delivery that you
Yeah.
leverage in that particular moment. But, I wanna dig into how you've been able to find your voice in sports, but before we get to that point, I wanna unpack some things, some really important things that Jacqie just shared in that story. We talk about boundaries, and I think the thing that we need to augment setting boundaries with is finding agency
Mm,
and making sure that we are comfortable taking up
mm,
space. So often in our lives, we've been asked to be reduced to just something over in the corner, right? Be seen, not heard. And we have to get comfortable
mm,
taking up space.
mm,
And you have to advocate for yourself. You have to give yourself your agency inside of those different things. So that boundaries and taking up space are, I think,
mm,
augmentation to where you need to be on the journey. But you mentioned a couple of things about, going from 10 to 25 and the conversations and the learning and the journey that you've been on with your mother in particular. I think there's a lot of things that we learn in Black households that are fundamental to who we are and how we show up as strong, independent Black women or great people. but I also think that we need to unpack them and the impact that they may have on us subconsciously. So there is the be seen, not heard, right? Put
Yeah.
your head down, work hard, get good grades, go to college, get an education. Like those things are great. And it is in opposition in some places to taking up space. And then there's the thought of meritocracy that if you do work hard, people will see how hard you work and how good you are, whatever it is that you're doing, and they're going to give you a chance. But that's not always the case. If you don't advocate, as Jacqie just mentioned, for yourself, you're not always gonna get those opportunities. And then the last thing I think is really remarkable, it's sometimes when we hit rock bottom where those God winks happen,
Mm,
and so we have to be willing to receive those messages.
yeah. Yeah. Wow, you unpacked that really good. Thank you.
Yeah, so much. I'm like, there's so many things, Jacqie, that that you share.
Yeah, you unpacked that so good. I think in all of that as well is, part of your boundaries, part of the agency, part of the advocating is having some things, some people you have to let go.
Mm,
That is hard because not everybody is on your team, even when they started on your team. And that's painful too. I've been evaluating some friendships when I came to be the commissioner. That shifted too. People they cheer you on and they say they're excited for you, but when they're not excited for themselves, they're not excited for you, right? And so I found, my little circle of influence and not influence, my circle of community has shifted over the years. And who gets to be a part of that community and who does not in the same way. Not everybody's treated the same in the Team Parker family. You're all loved the same, but you don't have all the same accesses. And even as commissioner, not everybody has the same accesses to the commissioner as they thought they think they should. And I always remind people, you don't call the ACC or the SEC commissioner and say that. So why do you get to do that with me? And I think those are the boundaries of, recognizing that I do have a position, the power, the influence to do the work that I do. And if I want to be successful, I've got to make sure that I put guardrails around that and have the right people around me to protect that so that I can be a great a gatekeeper of this conference and
mhm.
of my own peace of mind. And that's work every day, but I learned that pretty quickly. Maybe it took me 3 years to learn, like, okay, like, you gotta do something different if you're gonna survive in this role. Because as a woman of color, a Black woman, and you're on different boards and committees, if you get the opportunity to, you have to show up different. You
Mhm.
gotta be prepared differently, and you gotta advocate differently, and you gotta be able to sit back sometimes, but I never leave out without
Yeah.
leaving something to make it
Mm.
clear where I stand to support the things that are important to me and to what we do in college sports or what we do to humankind, period. I don't care if it's gender equity, diversity, if it's NIL, whatever. I am prepared to have those conversations, whether they're hard or easy. They're not hard conversations to me. Like you said, what is the outcome? I want us all to win. And what is my responsibility to make sure that I'm prepared that the outcome is a win for all of us. And sometimes it doesn't feel like it, but at the end of the day, like I tell our membership, I am always going to advocate for this conference. And you may not agree, but if you ain't in the huddle, you don't know the play on how we got to the win. And it's never, I used to say, you know what, no matter what we can do, what we do, we can't win. Yes, we can. We always win. We always win it. It may not be the way you want to win, but as a conference leader and understanding my role and responsibility at every single table from the board all the way to the student athletes, I definitely understand what that win looks like. And guess what? It might look differently than most people, but we win it.
Yeah. See, this is why we connect. I love this. I am all about all of us can win.
Yes.
All can win. It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. It doesn't have to
Right.
be a zero sum game. We all can win in different ways if we're clear about what is important to us. And there may be different things that are important to you that are different that are important for me. And so making sure that we're in those conversations. There's something that you said. I love the fact that when you get to the table, that's not the destination.
Yeah.
That's the opportunity. And we had a guest on our show a couple years ago, Shantara Hardy, that talked about like when she is on these boards, she recognizes that the challenge is even higher because you have to step up and show up and speak up in those sessions because you're not sure when the next person is going to get an opportunity to be in that room. So your responsibility is to make sure
Yeah.
that they are clear about what is necessary, particularly for people in historically excluded or marginalized
Yeah.
identities. Appreciate that that is important to you. And there's a couple things too that you mentioned as well about your journey. And I am just curious because we have to talk about this in sports. It's amazing what we're seeing in sports. And so often people see on TV, you see the composition of the athletes, whether it's football or men's and women's basketball or some of the more popular sports, if you will. And the majority of those athletes are black and brown. And then you go look in the directories, the staff directories on these websites, and there are very few of us outside of the personnel areas
Mhm.
in leadership roles.
Mhm.
And so I would love to unlock this club for you on your journey to understanding how sports has played a profound role in your life since you were a little kid and connecting on those bases to now what has that journey been like to be appreciated in a predominantly male, white male dominated industry at the top of sports,
Yeah.
predominantly white men?
Yeah, so it's all I remember when I took this job, like this was my dream job. Like I didn't want to be a commissioner. I wanted to be at the CIAA. It's where I played, it's where I felt culture, I felt connected, I saw myself, I saw leaders, I saw presidents like who wouldn't want to work or be at an HBCU? So when I got in this job, I remember the question like being the first, right? In my head, like I don't ever think it resonated of being a first Black woman full time, not interim, but full time for all three divisions. And all I knew is I just wanted to be the commissioner. I wasn't thinking being no Black woman. I wasn't thinking about being in it's short. But all I knew is I was prepared to be a commissioner. I didn't know commissioner had a stamp on being a white male, white woman, Black male. And so I wanted the opportunity to be in my dream job, but also to make a difference because I have really been blessed. There's not many people who get to work for the Division 1 or Division 1 men's and women's. I've worked both Final Fours. I've been behind the scene. I've sat at table with coaches. I remember having the site Don Staley was at, Tyra Vanderbeek, all all of them, Gino. I remember sitting in those rooms talking to them about what they cannot and can do before we get, right? These outer body experiences because that's the job. So as much as you want to be a fan, at the end of the day, we got work to do. We got a Final Four, sitting at the table with men's coaches, the ACC, SEC, Gene, all of them. Like I'm in the room. CB McManus, I'm in the room with them, Angela, and I'm the only Black woman in the room.
Mm,
Now, I may not be making a lot of decisions, but I'm sure in the room. And getting in the room is hard. But when you get in there, what do you take advantage of? And whether it's the men, again, I'm with Women's Final Four. It ain't a lot of us in those roles either, right? That get to sit at the table. But when you have that access, it's our job to make sure that we're not the only ones. I'm not the last. There's 5 women commissioners, 6 now, 6 Black women commissioners from NAIA Division 1, 2, and 3. That's a blessing all by itself, right? To be able to be prepared to, with like we were at the HBC commissioners went to DC to advocate on this name, image, and likeness to meet. We come out of the elevator and the Power 5 commissioners are coming out.
mm,
Like, don't play with us. Like, we have voice, we matter, we have an opportunity to advocate in the same way as everybody else. I think when we see them all the time, it can be extremely intimidating when you are in those spaces. And I've just come to the terms like it's like people who play golf. My husband's playing golf. I'm like, dude, you're gonna play every day and you still gonna miss the ball. Like, I want you to hit it, but we watching the Masters and they missing the ball, right?
yep, yep.
what we see is not always what it is. And we don't have to minimize ourselves anytime in any space or any room to prove anything except what we were meant to do, what we were meant to be in those spaces. So, have I been in the rooms with some of them? And I'm like, did I just say the same thing, but they said it differently and got heard?
Mm.
And did I call it out? Oh, I thought I said that a second ago. Like,
Oh, I love it. Wait. You call it out.
yes. Yes. Have I been on my CCA Division 2 calls with my commissioners and be like, what does that mean? And how are we doing this and we're not doing that? You got to call it out. And guess what? I'm not there to be popular and I'm not there to be your friend. I'm there to be the leader, the protector of the game, of the sport. And just like in women's basketball, I've always had this thing, Angela, and you probably know this. You played ball. When I lived in Colorado, I finished high school in Colorado. That's where sports became like, oh, I can play. The Olympic training centers around. I used to go to trials. I got to see some of the best women in the country try out for the Olympics. That's where I got to see. I was fortunate to see that. But what I always recognize in women's basketball and volleyball and some of these sports, we as players are not always represented until we get to certain schools or different level. And I can look at Division 2 women's basketball and Division 1, and it's not us playing because we don't have the same access as young girls. We don't get the same. Our Black boys do, but guess who pays for them?
Mm.
Girl, don't get me started.
Mm.
It's that
Ooh.
constant reminder we are not always at the table, even when we're little girls and have access. And it takes the advocacy of white men, white women who do have resources and access to bring us in, to bring us in. If Judy Sweet wasn't my vice president at the NCAA, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. And quietly, did she include me, not quietly like she was trying to hide it, but she just knew. She knew how to align me and others in spaces that she knew that she didn't have access to. She asked me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I want to be a commissioner. I never said the CIAA. And then eventually I was like, CIAA.
Mm.
But here are the things that I need. And my current supervisor at the time, that was white male, didn't include me in those things, but she and I found ways to kind of prepare me, and I took advantage of those spaces that normally people wouldn't, whether it was internally you gotta get outside of your box.
Mm.
I went to the, Girls Inc. Love Girls Inc. Smart, Bold, and Strong.
Yeah.
Well, I used all of that for my interview. Like, I'm smart, bold, and strong. How am I gonna
Mm.
volunteer, be on the board, do those things, but I can't speak that into my own existence. So sometimes our learning is not in the place that we are. We have to get outside of that and take advantage of those opportunities. We got to volunteer, we got to serve, we got to do something bigger than ourselves, and then grasp that and bring it back to the place where you're at,
That's it. That's
right?
it.
And
That's it.
people, they may not wanna ever they'll see it. I mean, because it's just who you are. Like, I just wanna be a good person, I wanna work hard, and I wanna make the space better.
Mm.
And whatever that looks like, whether you want me in it or not, you can't block my blessing, and I recognize that. And when you tell me no, that's okay, because there's some yes somewhere else, and maybe you're not supposed to be in that room. I just got left out. I won't even speak about it, where I was left out, but I was just left out of something I feel was tremendously a great opportunity for me and some other women of color that were first to be in. And maybe all of them were first, but I wasn't in that space. And my feelings were hurt, but I'm okay because that's probably not where I was supposed to be. But in that moment, I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What happened? Like, how did that get missed? And people are asking me, and I can't tell you why,
Yeah.
except that that's not where God wanted me to be. So sometimes women leave us out of the table, off the table too.
Absolutely, absolutely. So much to unpack. There's so many gems and jewels, Jacqie. So what you just left us with is essence of what we've discovered in our conversations on unlocking the club. There's two aspects of unlocking the club. One is that when you actually unlock the club, it's not one you want to be part of. You're like, this is not for me. You recognize that, you use a couple different things about maybe there's some people you need to let go, some situations you need to let go and find your people. A good friend of mine, Trisha Stevens, and a teammate of mine as well, call them team of allies, finding your team of
Yeah.
allies. Sometimes the club that you think you want to belong to, that you've aspired to your entire life, is not what you think it is.
Yeah.
And you actually don't want to get into that club. You can actually create your own clubs.
Yes.
And then the second thing you did so beautifully was to unlock the club that you do sit in, like that you do get to when you're at that table, when you have a voice and an opportunity to have an impact, how you show up. And I want to spend a little bit of time there with a question before we head to the back nine, Jacqie, is what does it take? Give us one or two things or some advice for people that are on their journey. When you think about what it takes to get there, what you need to do when you are there at the table,
Mhm.
and how you can leave it better when you walk away from that table. What are some things? Let's unlock that club and talk about that aspect of our truths.
Yeah, I think for me, it's so important to know who you are. Like it's so important, Angela, to be able to look in the mirror every day and be okay with who you are. Not what you think other people think you are, not what you thought your mom and daddy thought you are, who you are. But I need to look in the mirror every day and say, I am Jacqie McWilliams Parker. I'm a woman of strength. I've gone through a bunch of stuff, but boy, am I resilient. And I got this. I need
Yeah.
to speak my own truth and be honest. You know what? Today is just a bad day. And the reason why it's a bad day, because I lost my sister or I just don't feel well. My stomach hurts, and be okay. So that's the authenticity that a lot of us have a because when you're authentic, that means that you have to be vulnerable. Nobody likes vulnerability because vulnerability leaves you open to folks cutting you, slashing you, crossing you, all of that. But guess what? In the midst of all of that, it still allows you to be the pure person that you are, regardless of who other people are. It still allows you to be resilient and learn how to create your boundaries for those who don't even understand what you bring to the table. Not everybody can understand Jacqie McWilliams Parker and why she brings joy and why she's silly and why when the percolator comes on, she acts a nut. Don't matter if a president or who's in the room. That's my jam. I'm sorry. I'm going off, right? Don't play that song.
I
Everybody
think that was your walk-on music too. I think that was your walk-on music on that.
I'm like, why y'all playing that? Y'all know better. I just believe that you've got to be in tune with who you are because self-awareness, whoo, that takes practice. Knowing your strengths and leaning into your strengths, that takes practice. Trusting who you are and not trusting. I shared somebody said something to a friend the other day, like, who do you serve? Like, why are you scared of them? Like, who are they? Like, who do you serve every day? I know who I serve every day, but I also know that my mission that God has spoke into me is to be a blessing every single day, not just to my family and to my friends, but to myself. And when you are kind to yourself and you understand what that means, it doesn't matter what everybody else. Leadership is tough. It can be tough, but it's not tough when you are self-aware and you know who you are and you're living in it. We had our tournament, Angela. I don't know if everybody had a good time. I'm a fan of my own conference. That's how it should be. Because we're not doing anything we're saving the world in a different way by giving access and an opportunity, but it's fun. And the outcome is that people have great experiences. And is it challenging? It is, but we can work through challenges. I mean, it's a ticket. Okay, refund the ticket or make them pay. Like what? Like there let's not get upset about things that are not really that trivial, but we've learned to deal with things that everything is trauma and trivial. And I just think that there's an opportunity for all of us to look at life differently and it's an opportunity to wake up and breathe and live through our mission and create a space where we can look at ourselves every day and know why we woke up and what we're going to do to accomplish that day. So if I can make you smile today, Thank you, God. I did part of my job.
Yes. It gets back literally to the smiley.
And
And what that is the impact that you have and that you can win without it feeling hard,
yeah,
without it feeling like someone lost.
yeah,
That is a really powerful goal, and that is the essence of what I've heard, Jacqie, in the stories that you shared with us. You've been vulnerable, right? Really sharing what transpired when you were 10 years old and 25-year-old. You've been insightful. So many nuggets that you're dropping in jewels. And this conversation can go on and on and on. But I am cognizant of the time. And this has been so phenomenal. I want our audience to have a chance to continue deepen the learning about who you are as well. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here in a moment. It's golf season, Jacqie. You mentioned that your husband's out on the golf course chasing balls. That would be me losing balls in a lot of the trees. But on the back nine, there's always a back nine. There's
yes.
always something to look forward to. And so we will be right back here on Unlocking the Club with our special guest, Jacqie McWilliams Parker, on the back nine. Are you feeling stuck in your career or your business? Are you struggling to identify your unique talents and strengths? Well, I have some exciting news for you. I'm Angela Taylor, host of the Unlocking the Club podcast, with a really special opportunity for you to find more joy and more productivity in your professional and or personal life. As a certified coach, I'm now certified in Patrick Lencioni's 6 Types of Working Genius. So my Unlocking Your Working Genius coaching package will help you uncover your working genius and unleash your full potential. In this special coaching engagement, we use a proven methodology to help you identify your natural talents and your areas of strength. And then we guide you in creating an action plan to leverage those strengths for greater success in your life, career, and or business. So whether you're a business owner, an executive, or simply looking to advance your career, we can help you reach your full potential. Don't let your talents go untapped. Contact us today to schedule your Working Genius assessment and schedule your coaching sessions. Visit us at unlockingtheclub.com/coaching. Join us today and start unlocking your working genius for a brighter future. Welcome back to Unlocking the Club. I'm your host, Angela Taylor, here with our special guest, Jacqie McWilliams Parker. She's had some phenomenal insight and advice and stories that she shared with us. I'm so grateful, Jacqie, for you being on Unlocking the Club today and really talking about how important it is to be seen and heard for us individually and for us to actually create that for others, to make sure that others that we are in company with and conversation with feel seen and heard as well. Well, I would love to kind of see a little bit more and hear a little bit more about the fantastic Jacqie McWilliams Parker as well. First question I have for you here on the back nine, Jacqie, is, besides your own home, what's the place where you feel safest to be yourself?
Besides my own home. Oh, I mean, my job. Like CIAA, I always tell my board, I couldn't work for a better group of 13 presidents. That one I admire, and I get to see Black excellence and leadership every day. And they're so supportive, and not just me personally, but of my family, our athletic directors. Like CIAA, HBCU culture is special. I mean, we are truly family now. We knock down and, but we pick each other up. And you can talk about us, but you can't talk about us, but we can talk about each other. That's how it is. But it's always in a space with good intent for good outcomes. And you can't take it personal in the CIAA or HBCUs. But I know personally, I used to take a lot of things personal here. It just felt, and probably because of my own upbringing and, feeling a sense of not being seen and those kind of things. But even when I went to Hampton, it was always this intent to make me a stronger and a better person than I came in. And as the commissioner of this conference, man, it's a beautiful place to work at. Like, I allow my staff to be the best versions of themselves. I keep telling them, "Now you're gonna work somewhere else, and you may not last that long, but up in here, you're gonna learn how to manage, how to show up, You're going to make mistakes. I'm going to give you room and space to make mistakes, but just know this doesn't happen everywhere because I've seen it. I know it doesn't. But I love the space that I can be myself. And my team knows me. They know what songs, they know what drives me. They know I like to play. I'm disruptive in the office when I'm in the office because we work really hard, but I love to play hard. And we do. And I appreciate being in that kind of culture where I feel safe to be the best version of myself. When we have our tournament and I have to speak at 50 events, I show up the way that I am and unapologetically. And that's the space that we get to live in this conference every single day. And it's special. It's rewarding. It helps me not internalize what I really want to feel and say. I just learn how to say it in a way that's professional and that's fun and that gets the message across even in the Black community. There's still things to say and things not to say, and we learn that, but it's a place where you can learn, you can make mistakes, and you're still loved.
Mm. I would give the side eye to a lot of people that said the workplace is where they feel like the safest to be themselves. But I believe that you've mentioned that this literally was your dream job. And I see the look on your face, the smile on your face when you talk about your team and the things that you're able to do and accomplish and what you're creating at the CIAA. And I believe it with you, not with everybody, but I definitely believe it with you. Well, as you've navigated the landscape throughout your career, what is a scenario or a situation that you walk into with trepidation?
Mhm. Wow. That's a good question. I think there's moments where I have to negotiate a lot for this conference. And I know there's times if it was Black male or if it was a male, that I could probably get certain things done. And that happened early in this position where it just felt, and I remember a former leader saying, "Well, if it would have been me, a male, they would have got it done." And I was like, "Excuse me?" Like, I was kind of taken aback. And maybe they would have got more money. I don't know. That hit me because I recognize that even doing our media deal, doing our Under Armour deal, doing our deal with the tournament, I mean, these are major, major deals for the conference that I'm negotiating on behalf. I think what I've learned is go hard. Just go
Okay.
hard because, Angela, sometimes you feel like you lost before you even got in the room. So I go ahead with my crown and my trophy and be like, "Look at here. This is what I'm not gonna do. So since you got your thing that you think this is what I'm not gonna do.
Yeah.
And whether we get to do it or not, I have to be okay with that." I think that's why I love my board so much because they're not that for me. They're the ones who say, "Forget them then. You ain't got it." I'm like, "Wait a minute. Are you sure?" So they empower me to be okay and that it's not a loss, that stand ground regardless if they wanna let us in or not, and it's scary. It has been some scary times. I'm like, "We're absolutely not gonna do that," and I'm like, "Oh, shoot, like, what does that mean?" Because there are things that have been said to me, have been done to me that I know would never have been done or said to my white colleagues or
Mm.
my Black male colleagues. And so I've been taken aback on several occasions, but please know that I have found my voice to manage those conversations in the most eloquent, the most cordial, the most kind, but direct space. Because Mr. Mack, my daddy, military, logistics, CW3 in the Army, taught me that.
Like that. Yeah. Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
So the lessons that you've learned from your mother, from colleagues, from your father, what's your superpower, Jacqie?
Transformation.
Wow.
Yeah, like I remember the board asked me when I took this job about sort they didn't say superpower, but I'm like, I'm a transformer. I love Transformer, the movie. Like people know the percolator is my song, and I got a Transformer Halloween outfit, and I wear it. I don't care. Simone's like, Mom, it is like dirty. Whatever. We're gonna wash it and keep it moving. I believe like I can transform anything. I could transform a conversation. I can transform an environment where it feels stoic. I can color, I can paint. I mean, I just think being able to see yourself as a game changer to help somebody, because somebody helped me. I always say sports saved my life. I wouldn't be here if my beacon of hope was to play. And basketball and volleyball and track, but particularly in college, it gave me that safe space to be the best that I could be on the court, and it challenged me to do better in the classroom. But as a leader, as a captain, I got to transform. I got to be the influencer of my because they trusted me. And when you're trusted and people see that you're going to deliver, we can all transform a lot of different things. I love to take a plant and watch it grow. I just shared a picture my aunt gave me, a piece of my mother's plant years ago. My mom died in 2007, and she has this beautiful Christmas cactus, and when I went to Mississippi and 3 years ago, she gave me a small piece of it, and it bloomed the other day. It is huge,
Oh,
and it me gets goosebumps. In all transparency, my sister passed away a few days ago, but that plant bloomed the next day, and it was my mother. But I water that plant and I take care of it. And I think as a transformer, that's what you do. You water people, you plant seeds, you water them, and you help them grow. If you're going to be a leader, you see the vision and you try to get all the things in place so that you can actually see it be delivered and executed. Like, yeah, my superpower most days is a transformer.
mhm.
That's what I like to think.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's little, and you water it. Well, I have about 2 or 3 more questions, but I'm gonna leave it on that. You just
Okay.
dropped the mic with that story. Sorry to hear about your sister,
Thank you.
but that bloom was, as, Renee Brown, my good friend, says,
I
a
love
God
that.
wink. It was a God wink,
It
and
was.
that Jacqie, where can people find you, or do you have any projects, anything that you would like to share with our listeners and viewers?
Yeah, CI at CIAA Commish is my handle on all of the social media platforms. I think it's CIAA Commissioner on Facebook, and I'm on there mostly. I like to get on there every now and then and play. The CIAA Sports is the CIAA handle. I would just love people to see the projects of what we're doing in HBCU space, not just the CIAA, the SWAC, the MEAC, the SIAC. My girlfriend, Kiki's conference, NAIA. I'm gonna get it here in a second. But I think it's a great opportunity to see the amazing work that we're all doing and how our conferences are transforming, how the world is paying attention to the contributions that we're making in our communities. Our conferences are collaborating and really thinking about the opportunity to amplify our voices collectively as conferences and as leaders in how we show up every day. And so that's been really fun to be with my GCAC. It's our conference. My colleagues we're close, and those projects are really important to the great work. We're hoping to start a flag football team and a women's flag. Like that's my dream that we can make that happen. So there's some good things that we're working on, but I hope that people can see just the value and opportunities that HBCUs are providing for education and athletics. And as I tell every student in the country, like, don't see us as your last choice. See us at least in your top 10 and see it as a consideration to come to one of our universities to play and to get an amazing education and to see yourself every single day.
Mm, that's beautiful. Well, Jacqie McWilliams Parker, thank you for transforming how we see the world in this conversation today. So many nuggets that you dropped, really profound and inspirational to see how you show up in these conversations, very vulnerable, very insightful, truthful about what the journey is, and motivational
Thank
with what the perspective is like. So I appreciate the time that we had today,
you.
and I look forward to that flag football league for women that will most definitely happen. I know you are not going to walk away until that happens. And so thank you for the work that you're doing with our HBCUs and the CIAA conference. It truly does matter.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Angela, for the opportunity and time and the great work that you're doing and the conversations that you're having, because they do matter and people need to have voice and spaces to do it. And so the gift that you've been given to do this means everything. So you are a blessing all by yourself. I when I saw you on that panel, I was like, oh my God, I'm a fan. Like, I really admire the work that you're doing and who you are as a person. And so thank you. I appreciate it.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Unlocking the Club, and another amazing episode with our special guest, Jacqie McWilliams Parker. So many things that I learned in this journey. And we think about the platform of sports and how it has impacted many lives, for those that are able to participate at a young age. And it really does allow people to be seen in ways that you wouldn't imagine. For me, I talk about growing up in Mountain Home, Idaho, close to that Mountain Home Air Force Base all the time. And people got to know the content of my character, not the color of my skin,
Mm,
because my brothers and I participated in sports. It was really important for my parents to put us in sports because it allowed people to get to know us in a way that they may not otherwise have done so.
mm,
So really appreciate the conversation we had today on Unlocking the Club with our special guest, Jacqie McWilliams Parker. This is not it. The journey continues, the conversation continues, and we need you to be part of it. And so continue to make sure that you hit that subscribe button on YouTube, that you subscribe on our podcast platforms, that you share Unlocking the Club with your friends and family and allies for Black women, because these are really important stories to be told so that we make sure that everybody is seen and heard in the future. I'm your host, Angela Taylor. Thanks again for joining us on Unlocking the Club. Until next time, be well.
Thanks for listening to Unlocking the Club. If this conversation resonated with you, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or your favorite streaming platform so that you can experience every episode. And follow us on social media, where you'll hear about future guests, access special features, and connect with this amazing community. Head on over there and let us know how you are unlocking the club. Until next time, peace.